Hi, Mrs. B here. Let's review for the Chapter 4 test. Here are the topics that are on the test. From 4.1, we learned to write inequalities from a graph, from words, from a real-life situation, and we also learned to tell whether a value is a solution or not. And then the rest of the chapter was devoted to solving and graphing inequalities, whether we saw them with symbols or with words. Why don't you do the problems by pausing the video, and then you can check your work with my work after you're done. Here we go. Okay, so 4.1, we learned to write inequalities and tell whether a certain value is a solution. So for number 1, just the way the words sound, t is less than or equal to 5. We would write t and then the less than or equal symbol and then 5. And for number 2, that one should look familiar to you. I think we did that in class a while ago. Remember that the key word with subtraction is the order, and when we see the word from, we're taking g away from 6. So 6 comes first, minus g. And then no more than is the less than or equal symbol. If your mom says you can have no more than 3 cookies, that would be the symbol that represented that. And it's less than or equal to 3/4. And then you're done. Okay, for number 3, when we tell whether the given value is a solution of the inequality, we're simply putting that number into the inequality and seeing if it's true. So for number 3, instead of r here, we're putting in an 8, and we're seeing if is 5 less than or equal to 9. And yes, it is, so we would say yes, 8 is one of the many solutions to that inequality. And for number 4, we are multiplying 4 times -5. So we have -20. And -20 is not greater than -12, so -5 is not one of our solutions, so we would say no. Okay, moving on. Then also in 4.1, we graphed inequalities. So I think we're all experts at this by now, that we would put -1 on one of the tick marks and one less than -1 and one greater. And we'd put an open circle on -1, and we would shade to the right and put an arrow on the end of our shading, and we're done. That shows all the solutions represented on the number line. And then for number 6, again, we put the 2.5 on one of the tick marks. And you have your choice here of what to put to the left and the right. I like to choose the integers if I can. So we have 2 and we have 3. So we would put a closed circle on that 2.5, and we would shade to the left. Oops, that went away. Okay, there we go. And we're done. And then we learn to write inequalities from real-life situations. So for number 9, if you have at most 30, that's the same as if your mom said you could have at most 3 cookies. So I'm just choosing x as my variable, but we would use the less than or equal symbol and be less than or equal to 30. Now don't forget for real-life problems to label your units. 30 is games in this case. Moving on. Then we started to solve inequalities, and our first group is solving with addition and subtraction. So when there is subtraction in a problem, let's look at number 1. The inverse operation of subtracting is adding. So we would add 3 to both sides of the inequality. And on the left now we have y plus 0, so we just need to write y, bring down our symbol, and add -12 plus 3 and get -9. And that's it. We can always check our answer and try a number that's greater than -9, like 0, and put it into the inequality, and we would see that that's a true statement. Okay, moving on to number 2. To get x by itself, we have to subtract 8 from both sides. So on the left, we have negative 22. Bring down your symbol. And what we have left on the right is x. And it might be better to rewrite that with x on the left side, and it's greater than or equal to negative 22. And we're done. Okay, number 6, we have to subtract 5/12 from both sides. Okay, we need a common denominator between 4ths and 12ths. That would be 12, so we have negative 9/12 minus 5/12, so that's the same as plus negative 5/12. So we would have negative 14/12. We have to rewrite that and simplify that as mixed number. On the left, though, we have j, and we're going to bring down our symbol less than, and we're going to rewrite negative 14/12 as negative 1 and 1/6. And we are done. Okay, on number 7, we had to write and solve from the word problem. What I seem to do first is look at what goes on the other side of the inequality. In that case, it's that we can have 15 children at most. So we would be putting the less than or equal symbol with 15. And then we know there's already 7 children in the bouncy house. So we would have a certain number x that we can add to 7, but we still have to be up to 15. So that's our inequality that we would write to solve. And now to solve it, we have to subtract 7 from both sides. And on the left, we have x, and our symbol stays the same, and we have 8. And don't forget, because it's real life, that we would label that 8 as 8 children. Okay, that's that. Moving on. Okay, in the next section, we solved inequalities by multiplying or dividing. So for the first one, n is being multiplied by 6. So we need to divide by 6 to get 1n. So we need to do the same thing on the right side as well. So on the left, we now have 1n. Our symbol stays the same, and 90 divided by 6 is 15. And we are done. For number 3, we are multiplying 2 by negative 20. So in order to get 1/2, we have to divide by a negative number, negative 20. So I'm going to circle my symbol to remind me that I have to flip it. So now on the left we have t. Now we flip our symbol to a less than, and negative 80 divided by negative 20 is 4. And we're done. For number 8, t is really being divided by negative 5. So we need to multiply by negative 5 to solve. When we multiply by a negative number, we also flip it. So I'm circling my symbol to remind me to do that. Now on the left, when we multiply negative 5 times t over negative 5, we will have 1t, which is what we want. Our symbol is flipped, and we do 2.5 times negative 5 to get negative 12.5. And for number 10, h is being multiplied by negative 2/5, so we have to divide by negative 2/5. That's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, negative 5/2. So let's do that to the right. So we have negative 8. Let's put that over 1 times negative 5/2. Let's cross simplify. Divide out by 2. and we have negative 4 in the numerator and 1 in the denominator. Okay, on the left now, when we multiply a number by its reciprocal, we get 1. So we have h. Oops, I forgot to circle my symbol because we're multiplying by a negative number. So our symbol needs to be reversed or flipped. And negative 4 times negative 5 is 20. So that's our final answer. H is greater than or equal to 20. Okay, for number 10, again, let's look at sort of our boundary that we need at least 45 points. So just that part would be greater than or equal to 45. And since we know each question is worth 3 points, we would multiply our variable by 3 to get to our score. So 3, I'm just going to pick n for the number of questions on the test. And in order to solve this, we have to divide each side by 3. No flipping necessary because we're dividing by a positive number. So we end up with n is greater than or equal to 15. And since it's a real-life problem, we need units, and that would be the questions. We need 15 questions at least. Okay, moving on. Our last screen is the two-step problems. So remember that we do these in the opposite order of the order of operations. So for number 1, we have to take care of the addition and subtraction first. So we're going to subtract the 5 that's on the side with the x. So we need to do the same on the right. Now on the left, we have left negative 3x, not positive 3x, negative 3x. And it's still greater than, and 8 minus 5 is 3. And now for our second step, when we divide by negative 3 to get 1x, don't forget to flip your symbol. We now have x is less than negative 1. Final answer. Okay, the next problem, same kind of situation that we have to subtract 3. That's the subtraction we have to do to each side to start getting x by itself. Now on the left we have 4.5x is greater than or equal to 18. So we're going to now divide each side by 4.5. No flipping going on because we're dividing by a positive number. So x is going to be greater than or equal to 4. Okay, and then our last problem are those tricky problems with parentheses where we learned we could distribute, but faster is to divide by the number that we're multiplying the parentheses by, which is negative 6. So we need to do the same to the left side as well. I'm circling my symbol to remind me I'm dividing by a negative number. Now on the left I have 1. Flip my symbol. On the right I have gotten rid of the negative 6, so I just have y minus 3. So it becomes an easy problem where now we have to add 3 to get rid of that. So let's add 3 to the left side as well. So on the left we have 4. Our symbol stays as less than or equal, and we have y. And better to write this as y is greater than or equal to 4. And we are done. All right, then we have a word problem, a little bit trickier, but we can work this out. Kind of key is that we want to find out when we're going to owe our friend less than $60. So that's what goes on the right side, less than 60. On the left, we have what we started with, the $200. And then think of what you're really doing when you're paying your friend back each week $12. You're taking that away. You're ticking away at the money that you owed your friend. So we would take away 12 each week, so 12 times W. And that's one inequality you could use. There's a couple you could use for this situation, but this will work. So Now we need to get W by itself, so we're going to start by taking away 200 from both sides. And on the left, we have negative 12 times the weeks is less than negative 140. So our next step is to divide by a negative 12. Circle my symbol to remind me I've got to flip it. Now I have W is greater than, and what I get is 11.6 repeating weeks, but I can't answer it like that. So do I answer 11 weeks or do I answer 12? So we could try them both out in the inequality. When I do try 12 out and I do 200 minus 12 times 12, I end up getting 56, which would be the first amount. That's less than $60. So the answer is actually greater than, it would be greater than 11 weeks, because at 12 weeks we finally get enough money. So not at 11. You could also say W is greater than or equal to 12. And don't forget that these are weeks, both of them. Both of these would be correct. Okay, well, I hope you have reviewed with me today, and keep in mind this symbol when you're taking your test. I may be asking you about this. Okay, have a good night.